time coming, but it still has an uncertain road ahead. The House of Representatives passed the Equality Act, giving equal protections for LGBTQ Americans. So what's in the bill? It modified the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1964, expanding it to ban discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. The Supreme Court last year enshrined some protections based on sex in Bostock versus Clayton, but the Equality Act goes further. It means that a person can't be fired from a job because of their sexual orientation, can't be denied service at a hair salon because they are transgender, nor can a same-sex couple be skipped over for an apartment lease because of their relationship. Representative David Cicilline, a Rhode Island Democrat and one of a few openly gay House members, says this legislation is long overdue.
The fight for civil rights and equality has been a long struggle for many communities in our country, and we've made progress each generation. And we knew, even with the Republican-controlled Congress who opposed the Equality Act, that we had to lay the groundwork and begin to really move public opinion as part of our strategy. And the good news is recent polling shows 83% of Americans support non-discrimination protections for the LGBTQ community. A majority of voters in every single state support the same. So we've made real progress. Frankly, it's time for Congress to catch up to the country on this issue, but we knew that this was an important part of our work.
So why is this controversial? Well, not all lawmakers are on board. Opponents say that this violates religious freedom and gives transgender athletes the upper hand in women's sports. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy is one of most Republicans who oppose.
Very clear. I mean, if you look at Biden's appointments to cabinet members, suing nuns and others, this really seems like an onslaught against freedom of religion for girls' sports as well and others. And now the Democrats even taken it further.
The political difference played out in the halls of Congress, literally. When Democratic Representative Marie Newman, whose child is transgender, put up a transgender flag outside her door, Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene put up her own sign. There are only two genders, it says. So how likely is this to become law? The House passed the measure once before in the last Congress. But it didn't go anywhere in the Republican-controlled Senate and with a Republican president who rolled back rights for LGBTQ Americans. President Joe Biden is supportive and willing to sign the Equality Act into law, but it's not guaranteed it reaches his desk. In the Senate, if all Democrats support, they still need 10 Republicans. And as of now, none have signed on.
Yeah, Allison, detectives with the LAPD confirmed this is an active investigation. They are searching for that shooter. No suspects have been listed at this point. Here's what happened. It's about 9:40 last night in Hollywood. Lady Gaga's dog walker was walking Lady Gaga's 3 French bulldogs when a car with unknown assailants pull up. They shoot the dog walker. They take 2 of the 3 dogs. We're told the 3rd dog is escaped, was recovered by Lady Gaga's team. Police, again, searching for the shooter in this case. They have not listed or found any suspects. Are tracking the car, what appears to be in part of the video that they've recovered from the scene, and are attempting to hunt down whoever this was. Meanwhile, we're hearing the pop star is beside herself, extremely upset. She's offered a $500,000 no strings attached reward for the safe return of her 2 French bulldogs, which are obviously so dear to her in this case. The dog walker, meanwhile, thankfully, the best news we can report is that it sounds like the dog walker is expected to make a recovery, but this remains an active investigation with the LAPD as they try to track down who did this. Back to you.
How important is this shift now to really focusing on centers like this versus some of the bigger mass vaccination sites in this state?
Yeah, it's what I've been calling the hub and spoke model that we need to think about. So you need these mass vaccination sites, which are the hubs, to do the high volume vaccinations. And then we're the spokes on that wheel that could really get into these communities, provide local services with people that people recognize and people can relate to. I think one of the important things is be patient. I think we're going to see a flood of people coming in who are going to be the yeses, and that's great. But then there's a large portion of this population who are really going to be on the fence, and maybe a soft no or maybe a hard no. And I think we have to make sure that we maintain the capacity and make sure that the vaccine's available for as we're getting this information out and we're talking to the residents of this community. And when they say yes, we have to be open and available and make sure that we get those vaccines in people's arms.
When it comes to the undocumented community here who are so vulnerable, but they might be intimidated by seeing National Guard here, what has been the calculation when it comes to that?
Yeah, it was one of the things we were concerned about when the state offered the National Guard to us. But working with our board of directors and other community partners, they really helped us with developing social media posts and other ways to communicate that these National Guards men and women are really here to help this community, and they're not serving in any particular government role, and they're not here to check any immigration status. And many of them come from the community as well, so they speak the language and they know the culture and they know the unique circumstances that our patients are in. But I reminded them of that, and I told them make sure we give them the best customer service that we could possibly give them, and of course smile with your eyes.
Even under the mask.
Even under the mask.
Oh, smile with the eyes, even under the mask. Dasha joining us now from Boston. Dasha, tell us more about the biggest roadblocks health officials and places like this are dealing with as they try to get minorities vaccinated and get to populations that are just being left out here.
Hey, Allison, we're coming to you from a very windy day here in East Boston. And look, the answer to your question is not a simple one. And that is part of the challenge, right? These communities, they differ greatly from zip code to zip code. We saw that firsthand yesterday when we visited several different centers in different neighborhoods. And that's really why these community health centers are looking to take the lead. These are hyper-local institutions that reflect the communities and the people that they serve. They've been ingrained here for decades now. They've basically been like the Swiss Army knives of healthcare and information here. So they feel like they can really help with that confidence issue, the issue of trust with a lot of these communities, that they want more information, but they want it from people that they know, from people that they can relate to. Manny Lopes, who heads up the East Boston Neighborhood Health Center, we were with him yesterday, and he was recognized on just about every street corner. These centers are also deploying what they call vaccine street teams, folks who are going out, talking to their neighbors and really having that one-on-one conversation to better understand the concerns. I want you to hear from one of those individuals. This is Sandra. She is going out into the neighborhood, listening to her neighbors. Take a listen to some of what she had to say.
So some of the concerns that I hear is so for folks who don't speak, English is not the first language, I am finding that there's a lot of fear regarding the vaccination and how that information is going to get transferred to government agencies, how that information is going to get utilized. But on the other hand, for English-speaking folks, I'm finding that there's just a lot of fear and mistrust about the process, specifically around how quickly the vaccine was developed. So a lot of the feedback that I get is, I want to wait. I don't want to be the first in line.
So they can really understand what the fears are, so they can help bridge those gaps and break down those barriers. But Allison, aside from the confidence issue and the trust issue, there are also systemic problems that predated COVID-19 that have now been exacerbated. For example, life expectancy. One of the neighborhoods we were in yesterday, Roxbury, has a life expectancy of 59 years. So when you look at eligibility, that's for 65 plus, you're missing a whole lot of vulnerable folks there, Allison. These are the things that the leaders here really want thought about more. They want more attention paid to these sorts of issues in the vaccine strategy going forward here. Allison.
Really important stuff, Dasha, in a very windy Boston, Massachusetts, but I'm glad to see you don't have gloves on. That means it's pretty warm in Boston for this time of year.
That was a mistake. I shouldn't have had gloves on, Allison.
Oh, no. All right, get inside and get warm. Dasha, thank you.
See you soon.
Allison, it's Thursday, so you know that means the weekly jobless report. And in the last week, we saw over 700,000 Americans file for new unemployment claims. And I know on its face that's a big number, but you've got to put it in perspective. Analysts were expecting over 800,000. And the even better news, the trend has been going down. Why? COVID. We always have to remember it's a health crisis tied to an economic crisis. And as the COVID numbers are going down across the country and more people are getting vaccinated, we're seeing jobs come back. We're seeing businesses reopen and do more business. Think travel, leisure, hospitality. A lot of those industries are opening up again. And that means we're seeing more hiring. And while we haven't seen President Biden's next stimulus package go through yet, it's inching closer and closer. And if it does, that will mean more money in the pockets of some of the lowest income Americans. It'll mean more support to businesses so they will be able to expand and hire more. Those are two very positive things possibly in the pipeline. And today, in the immediate wages front, we saw good news from Costco announcing they will be raising the wages of their lowest wage workers to $16 an hour. So while the debate is still going on in Washington whether to raise federal minimum wage, we are seeing some major companies. I mean, Costco has 180,000 employees. That's a lot of people you're going to see that are simply going to have more money to spend, and that money will go back in the economy. So it's a good news on the job front, on the overall economy, but we also have to remember recovery is a slow and long process. COVID isn't yet behind us, so we'll take this good news, but we're not going to the bank with it yet.